So let me introduce our speaker for today. His name is Ron Gonzales. He is the owner of, the creator of, the owner, the founder of RJG Consulting. I guess it would be better if Ron tells you about what his company specifically does. He's right here. So let me introduce him. Ron, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for your time today. As Ronnie said, my name is Ron Gonzales. I'm the owner of RJG Consulting Group, and we are a IT consulting firm based in Stony Brook. We do everything from cybersecurity to infrastructure, cloud hosting, all those fun things that are needed for running businesses, in 2021. I'm going to go through today a few items that will help small businesses make sure that they are up to date with their cybersecurity policies and procedures, as well as give you guys some great references and links to learn more about what we talk about today directly from the software providers themselves. Since we have a small group, I do like to make it a little bit more interactive, less preachy than anything else. So if you guys have anything in particular that you guys want to talk about, I know a lot of people always have questions about internet service providers or antivirus or cybersecurity practices. Does anyone have anything that they would like to touch on that we'll make sure to go over during this presentation? We are going to go over cybersecurity and technology best practices for your small business. Here at RJG, we rely on integrity and reliability. Those are our two major pillars of our business. I graduated from Rochester Institute of Technology, and RJG is an active member in InfraGuard, which is a partnership and protection between law enforcement and professional services companies like ourselves to stay on top of current and new evolving cyber threats. So part of what we do here at RJG is we try to help people before something bad happens. But if something catastrophic does occur, we do partner with law enforcement, all from local all the way to federal, to help catch the bad guys, essentially, and help businesses recover from either a disaster or a cybersecurity incident. Let's talk a little bit about cybersecurity and what our expectations versus the reality are. One of the first things that we want to know as business owners is that there is no absolute defense. Every solution that we're going to talk about today, all of their software providers, none of them will actually tell you that, we're going to absolutely prevent something happening to you, right? There's no such thing as a safe space when it comes to cybersecurity. So if anyone ever promises you 100% safety, just know that it's realistically not possible. Threats evolve every day. They evolve so rapidly that there is actually a term coined for it called zero-day attacks. So unfortunately, there's no possible way that we could be 100% safe. But what we do try and do is mitigate the risk of the actual data breach or cybersecurity incident. The name of the game in cybersecurity is to make the actual event less likely to occur, or to get alerts that the event is occurring in real time. But don't worry, it's not all bad news. It's not doom and gloom. There are just as many good guys out there as there are bad guys. So let's take a look at the type of information that we're trying to protect. Essentially, all of this information that you see displayed here is what hackers or what we call malicious actors are trying to get to. any personal identifying information, any user credentials, so access to your email, access to your bank accounts, any payment card information. They would love to get a hold of credit cards or medical and legal documents. Customer contact lists as well would be a big hit list for them, because that gives them a list of potential new targets. If you can get a list of new targets off of a list that you already, off of a company that you've already infiltrated, chances are that you can approach them as a trusted third party. Educational and employment records are also big, because they can sell that information, right? And that is in reality what malicious actors are trying to do. They are trying to make money. At least the malicious actors that we're talking about for small to medium business, they are trying to get you to pay them in some sort of currency, right? There is a branch of cybersecurity that deals strictly with what's considered cyber warfare activities. That's, attacks on power grids and things like that. Obviously, that's out of scope for this presentation, but I would say about 90% of the cybersecurity attacks that go on small to medium businesses turn this information around into a profit in one way or another. And last but not least, trade secrets. Obviously, they're after patents and anything else that might be particularly valuable in terms of monetary gain for other companies or other people who are interested. So, as small business owners, what do we risk in terms of cybersecurity and either the lack thereof, right? Or when we invest in cybersecurity spending, what are we actually investing in for our own company? First and foremost is trust. Customers trust your brand. They trust your company to keep their information safe. It's sort of a second thought already. I feel like people who are giving you their credit cards or their payment information automatically just trust that it will be safe. If your data or your systems are breached and their customer information isn't protected, they're less likely to buy from you, which also impacts your brand, right? If your brand becomes synonymous with identity theft, or people start to recognize your company as the place where their information was stolen, that could hurt your brand's reputation. And those are some soft costs, right? That's sort of the opinion part, your customer relations part. There's actually also monetary costs, production downtime, the cost to remedy an issue when it does occur, also any legal issues or any legal fees that you might have to pay as a result of a data breach. We'll talk a little bit about a company's requirement under New York Shield to disclose a cyber attack. And usually if you're going to disclose that, you're probably going to want to get some legal counsel to do that for you so that it can be done correctly. So these are, the four major ones. There's always some sort of other costs that may be associated, whether it's, hardware replacements or, a rebranding and a remarketing campaign to improve your brand reputation and trust. Those are all the risks of letting cybersecurity lapse. And again, like we said, there's no 100% protection, but the less likely you are to be infiltrated or attacked, the better off all of these items will be for your company. So why small businesses, right? Small businesses actually make a huge target. there are many of us. There are more small businesses than there are Fortune 500 and 100 companies. And back when we made the presentation in 2019, cybercrime will account for $6 trillion by 2021. That number was eclipsed by January 2021. It's now $7.5 trillion in cybersecurity infiltration and crime. So congratulations to them, I guess. 2018, Verizon's data breach investigations find that 58% of attacks are attacks on small businesses. To the right, you'll find some FBI reported losses from consumer complaints. That is how the FBI collates data for small businesses. We are included in those customer complaints. From 2009 at 506 million to 2019, there was exceptional growth for small businesses experiencing cyber attacks, and those cyber attacks winning out. 3.5 billion last year for small businesses alone. So that is a tough pill to swallow in terms of money for people losing that kind of money. And keep in mind, this isn't always liquidity money. It's also the value of those trade secrets, as we said, the personal information that's stolen, etc. So quite a large number. And the reason for the large number is because all of these threats are on a global scale. They happen sometimes from the United States, Canada, Mexico, but a lot of times they are coming from unfriendly countries that are just connected onto the internet and can start sending you information or data. So these malicious actors are aware that small businesses are a big target. And sometimes the mentality is that we don't have anything of value for them to steal, which is not the case. But they also know that smaller budgets means smaller security. They realize that Fortune 500 companies or large companies in general will have a bigger budget to put towards cybersecurity, so they're a little bit more well protected. So small businesses are easier targets. It's a target-rich environment, so there are more of us. A lot of the small businesses do not invest in training for end users. And they know that small businesses are a great gateway to larger targets. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a breach at the retailer Target for some 4 million users, 4 million people who had purchased from them. Their data was, stolen. Their credit cards were stolen, and that came through. It wasn't actually Target that was, at fault. Yeah, correct. Yeah, it wasn't Target that was at fault. They were actually accessed through a trusted third party that was a small business. Their heating and cooling vendor for a certain area who had, access into their systems, they got infiltrated. And from there, the malicious actors saw that they were able to connect into Target's network and just piggybacked off of their connection for months. So malicious actors do realize that larger companies use small businesses to be either a vendor or a local person, and they give them access into their network. And so it's a nice and easy way to get into larger places. So that's why they're targeting us. So how are they targeting us? Well, there are 5 main attacks that we're going to cover today, 5 major attack vectors. The first one is phishing and spearfishing. That's really email. The second is malware and ransomware, and that's code. The third is a drive-by attack, which is a little bit random, but it's based on your internet connection. Number 4 is going to be your website and database, and that's going to be website and databases that you use on a daily basis. And the last but not least would be a direct attack on your network or your hosted systems. All right, so phishing and spearfishing. Phishing and spear phishing happen when emails are being sent from a trusted source, or they appear to be a trusted source. And it combines social engineering with a technical delivery. What that means is that, maybe someone that you trust or someone that's in your address book sends you an email that asks you to click on the link to view a document. And that link will, and I'll show you a example of this in the next slide, but obviously that link would be malicious. That's an example of spear phishing. All of these tactics, phishing and spear phishing, happen through an attack vector, which is email. It's actually the biggest attack vector for small businesses. That is where people will try to either socially engineer you or send you a malicious email in hopes of getting your credentials and pretending to take over your identity, or make a copy of your website. Send you a copy of a website, like a banking website that isn't actually a banking website, to get your banking credentials.
Yes.
They can also send you attachments that execute malicious code to get ransomware. And one of the newer tactics is whaling, where malicious actors, instead of sending everything to the company, they'll send it just to the CEO. And again, criminals just want to gain access to your site and your partner site to see what information you have. They'll try to make you send wires or gift cards. They'll also get you to try to send your invoicing or wire information so that they can get some of your banking info. They also try to steal credentials or establish a company organizational chart so that they can better attack not only your company, but your partners, any other companies that you do business with. So here's an example of a phishing attack. Obviously these links are malicious, but you can see how the Citibank one looks pretty legitimate. It comes, from alerts at citibank.com. The recipient's email is, okay. It tells you have a security alert, but all of that can actually be, false, right? What would matter is where the link takes you. So when you, click on a link, just make sure to always check that web address. But these are examples of phishing. Drive-by attacks. They are attacks that attach themselves to legitimate code or malware. Sometimes Office has macros or executables that can run. So malicious actors will send you an Excel sheet, and you open up the Excel sheet, and all of a sudden it executes the code. There is a difference now. There's ransom and extortionware. Extortionware is when the users don't actually ransom your data. They take your data away, they copy it, and then threaten to sell it or release it. So that's a new one. And why does this happen? Well, they can take an extortion from you, which is great for them. They say, we want $100,000. One example is Rockville Center School District, who paid $150,000 to ransomware. We've had a few libraries have that happen as well. So that is where a data breach actually comes into effect, because they've actually stolen data. But that's one example as well. Drive-by attacks are attacks that happen on your website. So if you have a website that is hosted, or you made it yourself, maybe it's like Wix or something like that, malicious actors will actually try to tie themselves to that website so that they could get information about your potential customers that are coming to you. We'll show you how to take care of that. Website and database attacks. These are attacks that happen on the fly to databases that you are using. Let me give you an example. If you use something like QuickBooks Online, that's a database that is hosted by QuickBooks. What malicious actors try to do is attack your connection, that happens between your computer and that connection to the database. They do that by these attacks listed here: password, dictionary, SQL injections, cross-site scripting. But one of the things that they're trying to do is just gain your credentials to those sites. They would love to get access to your QuickBooks or your banking, send themselves some wires or send out bogus invoices, things like that. We will talk about how to protect yourself on those fronts. And last but not least is network and DDoS. Network and DDoS attacks happen when a malicious actor has actually found your physical site and will launch an attack to bring down either your internet or a group of people's internet connections. This is very common among service providers, but small business owners are starting to see this a lot more. And when I say service providers, I mean internet service providers, right? But small businesses are starting to see attacks going to them because they will DDoS attack you, meaning you don't have internet. The internet company, the ISP, whoever you have, most likely won't help you with that, because they're going to say, we've provided you internet access, we don't provide you cybersecurity. And so when that attack happens, they'll start calling you, via phone and say, we know your internet's down, we're doing it, pay us a ransom, and you'll have your internet back. And for people who use a lot of things on the cloud, that's a showstopper, right? So let's go over how we start to protect ourselves from this. The first thing is that you want to follow some sort of guideline, right? The governing body of cybersecurity standards starts at NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology. NIST is the lovely folks who are in charge of updating things like HIPAA and PCI. NIST is also the governing body that states consult when they're coming up with regulations for their state. New York State has cybersecurity regulations for banks, insurance, and financial services, and the New York Shield Act, which is meant for everyone else who isn't a banking, insurance, or financial company. And so if you are unsure if your business needs to comply with any of these, I'll break them down for you. HIPAA is for any health providers. PCI is anybody who's going to keep credit cards on their systems, not process credit cards. If you have a credit card processor or a merchant account with your business, as long as you're not keeping that data in your computer, you're good. You don't need to be PCI compliant. The company that's doing the merchant services for you needs to, not you. But if you, for some reason you are keeping that data, let's say it's marketing purposes, then you will need to be PCI compliant, and your payment vendor will tell you that. The New York State Cybersecurity Regulation, that is if you are bank, insurance, or financial. So if you deal in any of those industries, you'll need to do that. And then everyone else falls under New York Shield. And that stands for Stop Hacks and Improve Electronic Data Security. And that is New York State's attempt at getting at least a standard out there for cybersecurity. So these are going to be some, if none of those industry verticals apply to you, Shield is the place to start. So how do we choose a solution that's going to best suit our needs and also make sure that it works? What makes one solution good and another solution not so great? Any cybersecurity solution, any computer solution at this point has to follow the Cybersecurity Framework. And when I say has to, I mean that as a small business owner, this should be your Bible when it comes to picking an IT solution, regardless of what it is. First, it's identify your critical data and server and customer facing infrastructure. That's for you. You're going to want to say, does any of my computers or do any of my systems hold any critical data or customer facing information? Because that is what, a majority of malicious actors are going to go after, including your own, right? So this critical data should include your internal information, your customer list, your client, your client's information, any trade secrets or patents you might have, or product information or vendor lists. All of that is considered critical data. So identify where that data lives. If it lives on your computer, are you using Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive? Identify where that information is, because that is where you're going to want to implement a protection plan, which is our second step. Implement protection for the items that are of biggest risk. So like we said, once you gather all that information of what you have and where you have it, take the one that has the biggest size and start to implement protection there. So what should your protection consist of? It should be these three items next. Every cybersecurity solution should detect, respond, and recover to security incidents. Detect is the function of how do you know when you're under attack or if something is being stolen. Respond is how does the system detect the attack and then prevent its spread or eliminate the attack altogether. And the third is once the attack is over, once it's either been isolated or eliminated, how do you recover that data or service? And that extends to other parts of the business. If you do have a cybersecurity incident, there may be some services that have stopped working for your clients, right? If you're like, for example, the library, right, that had a cybersecurity attack, no one can take out books, right? It wasn't, all their computer systems were down. So how do you, what's the backup plan for that? In their case, they went back to library cards and stamping, right? But in your case, what would you do if your services to your customers were interrupted because of not only a cybersecurity attack, but maybe there's other sorts of data unavailability, right? So this is the framework that you should be using to select solutions. So let's take a look at the first solution: user training. These solutions that we're going to go over are going to protect you against those 5 attack vectors that we talked about. These solutions work sort of hand in hand and in conjunction. One solution may help you in multiple attack vectors. So we're talking about the human element here. There's no better protection than an educated user, someone who knows, oh, I can hover over the hyperlink to see where I'm actually going. There are trainings, cybersecurity awareness trainings from vendors. You can see the vendors listed here. I've actually sent a list of all of these vendors categorized to Leslie, and Leslie will share that information with you guys. But here are some vendors: Barracuda, Cisco, and Webroot are some cybersecurity awareness trainings. Yeah, Wombat. They're a smaller company, but they do a pretty good job of end user training. And some of these end user trainings consist of using passphrases instead of passwords. Two-factor authentication is also something that should be in place for you pretty much across the board at this point. And I'll just touch on those two things briefly. So passphrases instead of passwords, people would use passwords like hello123. That's a password. But passphrases are a little bit different. It's more like a sentence, so it's longer. You could say, your passphrase could be Miami is my favorite city. That's very long. It's still shorter than 32 characters. And it's a lot harder to guess than just a regular password, right? But on top of that, two-factor authentication is something that's now an industry standard. That's when after you put your password in, you get a text message on your cell phone or an authenticated app push or an email with a code. that type of authentication is considered best practice and standard at this point. And that's because if someone does manage to get your password, they probably won't also get a hold of your cell phone, which is why you start seeing more of those cell phone attacks, because they want access to your cell phone so that they can get the text message for the two-factor authentication, right? And so you could see how the security threat landscape evolves, right? Because we didn't have to really think too much about mobile devices in the past. Now mobile devices have become a bigger attack vector. So biometric authentication is something that is also prevalent and in use, and that is when you use a camera or a fingerprint or an eye scan. Just a little bit of word on that. That actually turns your biometric data into a password string. So while it looks cool, it's not that secure because that text string can be replicated. So it's not something that we would recommend for at least a small business. There are servers that like encode that and things like that, but you're getting into a well over six-figure system at that point. But so if you're going to use biometric authentication like face recognition on your iPhone, just know that that turns your face into a password. It's not actually making the phone any safer, right? If someone gets a hold of that password, they can just replay it back and get in. So better to use pins or things like that. So we went over some security awareness training. The training should include topics such as how to identify malicious code, what to do on your mobile devices and wireless, physical security, social engineering, and reporting an issue or a problem, and securing your backup data. Email protection. The biggest attack vector, if you don't have added email protection, you should go out and get some. The email system that you are probably using today may be hosted. So if you're using someone like Office 365 or G Suite, which is Google Mail, then you can definitely add on security, right onto your subscription. You can also go to a third party. Some of them are Cisco, FireEye, Sophos, Barracuda shows up again, but Microsoft and Google also offer it. And the benefits here are to stop threats before they hit the network. Cloud solutions offer AI protection, which will actually scan an email and its contents while it's being delivered to see if the email is actually social engineering, because that email won't have links in it, right? Social engineering emails have just texts that say, hey, I'm so-and-so, can you call me? And then when you call them, they try to get you to do something, right? But the AI has that kind of protection in there to say, hey, this one looks a little weird, so it'll quarantine it. The other benefit is that it ensures continuous email availability. So if for some reason Microsoft is down and you have your email security with a different company like Barracuda, the emails actually go to Barracuda first to get scanned. So you won't lose any email. Barracuda will just hold it and spool it for you, and you can get to it even if your email solution is down. You'll be able to get to it via your phone. If your internet's down, you can get to it via your your cell phone. So the solution should meet the minimum requirements attached here, which is email attachment scannings, virus scanning, encryption for your email when you're sending it out, encryption for your email, outbound filtering so that your email gets scanned for viruses before it leaves to your recipient, and then data leak protection, which allows you to make sure that you're not sending any sensitive information that shouldn't be sent in the beginning, social security numbers, PCI information, etc. the solutions provide a risk mitigation for phishing and spear phishing. So if you're getting a lot of these scam emails, it should cut that down by a minimum 90%. Malware and ransomware and DDoS attacks can also be prevented by getting an email protection service. The DDoS attacks can be prevented by, they'll actually send you a little modem that goes in front of your regular modem that will stop a DDoS attack before it occurs. The detect and respond and recover, it should be capable of sending you alerts and logging when problems are scanned for 30 days at minimum. The respond portion of email protection should be that the solution should include DKIM and DMARC reporting. These reports actually allow you to prevent spoofing to customers on your behalf. It will stop your organization from being the one sending these malicious emails. And recover, your solution should block inbound attacks via a drop and resume normal email operation and zero downtime. Those I know are sort of like industry jargon, right? Drop and resume normal operation. But if you're talking to multiple vendors about your email security, that's something that if they don't mention, they probably don't have. But it's good to ask about whether or not if you're getting an email attack, will the system just drop the email and move on to the next message? Because what these malicious attackers do is they'll send you 3,000 or 5,000 messages at once so that nothing else can get through. But in a drop system, it will see that, oh, this is 3,000 messages from the same person. I'm just going to drop all 3,000. I'm going to move on to the next one. And this way your email doesn't get backlogged with all of that, with all of that junk. So vendors for this include Cisco, FireEye, Sophos, Barracuda, Microsoft, and Google. I want to emphasize those. We have sent you links to a few of them. But definitely if you're not sure about your email security now, talk to whoever hosts your email to see what kind of security you have and make sure they meet this detect, response, and recover minimum requirement there. Endpoint protection and monitoring. So this is your antivirus software. This will allow you to protect against that drive-by issue, as well as the malware, ransomware issue. The antivirus software, and really what it really should be called EDR software, it stands for Endpoint Detection Response Software, adds a final layer of protection to if users get through the phone, the network, and your computer to actually get installed, and now you're you have some sort of malicious code on your machine. This software acts as a final layer of protection. It should include some system monitoring and isolation. So the antivirus solutions or EDR solutions should include real-time protection and scanning, which means it's always continuously scanning your system and reading what you're opening and closing in order for it to protect you correctly. WMI integrated scan stands for Windows Management Interface integrated scans and updates. What that does is it actually interfaces with your operating system so that it can scan the subsystems of your operating system to find malicious code buried in files, and it should continuously update that. Reporting and real-time alerts cannot be understated. The system should be able to alert you. It needs to be able to alert you, because otherwise you won't know that you're compromised. And then endpoint level firewall and centralized monitoring reporting. Both of these are also important because it provides, the endpoint level firewall provides a network DDoS protection for your computer itself on top of the network already. And the centralized monitoring reporting lets you manage not just your computer, but any other computer you may have in your organization. So if you have all of these features, you'll be able to detect ransomware in real time or viruses in real time through the scanning. Respond to it by having a auto quarantine feature, so that malicious code, if it does get on your network, stays only on one machine and it doesn't spread to multiple machines. And in terms of recovery, the monitoring tool should allow you to restart processes and, if needed, shut down that one computer and start the recovery process of that machine. Few vendors that will be very critical here will be VMware. ESET makes a good product. Webroot and Sophos show up again. And EDR, the leaders in EDR are CrowdStrike and SentinelOne. Those are essentially the gold standard at the moment for endpoint protection, and those links will be sent over to you as well.
That's amazing, Ron.
Next generation firewall. This is the firewall that protects your network. So you get a modem from Optimum. This should be your next device in line. Right after the modem should be your firewall. And it will provide intrusion prevention and scanning for everything that comes in and out of your organizations. It will also allow you to do GeoIP filtering, which essentially you can say block every other country. If it's not from the United States, Canada, I don't want it coming in. That will prevent probably half of your attacks right off the bat. And so this is a needed device for any office space that you're holding. The solutions and availability portion, it should be having that DDoS protection in there as well. Advanced malware filtering allows it to look at your downloads as you're downloading them to make sure that they're not maliciously infected. And if they do find that it is maliciously infected, it will block that download. So that is another huge benefit of next generation firewalls. Vendors here: Cisco, Palo Alto, Sophos, Meraki, and SonicWall. All of these companies will make this appliance that you can install at your office, and they all have the detect, respond, and recover for this appliance in particular. So all of them have, and all of these vendors have and meet these detect, respond, and recover requirements. So high availability, just so you know, I know it's on here, means that you'll have to purchase two of them. So this way, if one fails, the other one takes over. But that's sort of a nice to have, because obviously you want to run multiple internet lines for that if you have it in the budget. But the only time I would recommend high availability is if you are running your business 100% on the cloud. If everything is, QuickBooks Online and Gmail and so forth and so on, then access to the internet is worth that investment, because you can't take any downtime. And last but definitely not least, it should never be the last thing on your priorities list, is backup and disaster recovery. As a matter of fact, out of all of the things that we talked about, this is the only thing that will save you if you have a breach where you lose data. So definitely don't make it the last thing that you allocate for in a budget or in your to-do list. Every business needs some sort of backup, and backup solutions and disaster recovery are not the same thing. Backup solutions offer a last resort to cybersecurity incidents where you lose data. Your backup will let you recover that data. Disaster recovery is a little bit different, where there is an IT element to that, right? Disaster recovery talks about what happens if we are physically not able to access our data for one reason or another. That includes natural disaster, terrorist attack, etc., and so forth. East Coast power outage, right? What do we do then, and what kind of services are we going to provide? The DR plan has an IT element. Obviously, you're going to say, how am I going to access my IT resources? But really, a DR plan should include what am I doing? How am I, going to provide services to my clients if those things happen. And a lot of times that's a logistical challenge more than an IT challenge. For your backup should be encrypted. It should be able to send data off-site from your location. It should give you alerts and reporting for each backup job, and it should protect against deletion. You can't just delete the backup. You shouldn't be able to just delete the backups, especially historical backups. GFS retention means, it stands for grandfather, father, son, but what it means is that you would keep a monthly backup for a year, a weekly backup for 3 months, and then daily backups for 30 days. That's just an example. That's not an industry standard. It's just saying that, hey, I'm going to have all of these backups for a year, and the rule is you cannot delete them, right? Because what these malicious actors do once they get access to your system is they will go and actively look for your backups to delete them. So there should be deletion protection in that solution. For the detect, respond, and restore for this one, alerting in the backup solution should check if any of the jobs fail or if they're stuck. So if a backup job runs and it's supposed to run and complete in 3 hours, but it's been 6, you should be getting an alert to that. The respond portion should be some self-healing built in, because obviously those backups are probably going to run overnight. You're probably not going to be looking at your phone. So the respond portion is the system should automatically say, oh, it's been too long. Let me stop this backup job and try again. And the restore is the backup. The system should maintain a 3210 of restoring files. What that means is that the data can in the backup system be kept in 3 physically separate locations on 2 logical separate locations and 1 failure backup scenario. So let me give you an example of that. If you have an office, then you have your backups, you have your live data, which is 1 copy. You have your backups locally, which is your 2nd copy. And then you have your offsite backups, which is most likely in some sort of cloud environment. And that would be your 3rd copy. But it's 2 physically separate locations, the cloud and your office, and then 1 failure, total failure location, which would be your offsite replicated backup, right? So the one that you send offsite, if for some reason or another your office is not physically able to be recovered, or your local office is not logically able to run anymore, you can take those cloud backups and restore them to a cloud environment like Azure or something like that. If you follow that type of restore plan, your risk of data loss is greatly reduced. So some vendors for that: Symantec, Acronis, Veeam, Commvault, and Datto. I'll send you the links for those as well. All of them offer solutions that fall into that detect, respond, and restore portion. And lastly, if for some reason the backups fail, so we're talking about a total failure, the cybersecurity measures that were put in place were gone through, the backups for some reason got deleted and the offsites weren't working, so everything has failed, your last option should be cybersecurity insurance. I do not sell insurance, but talk to your business insurance provider, the same people who give you errors and omissions or liability, what have you, to get some cybersecurity insurance. Because if you do have that kind of failure and you do lose client data or you do lose production time, cybersecurity insurance will allow you to procure lawyers and tell people about the data breach, and also get you some money back to start rebuilding your your solution.